Welcome back to Sustained Overruled. Jury deliberations in the Melody Farris case resume tomorrow morning. We left off on Friday where the jury sought information from the court, or at least they posed questions. I've not had an opportunity to listen to those just yet, and that is the purpose of this video, right? Need to be on track for tomorrow in time for jury deliberations. I have thoughts about how this case might possibly be resolved, but I'll reserve those until the very end of this video. Let's take a listen. All right, they're mute. One moment. Technical difficulties. Just a second. Stop sharing. There we go.
Is included in the indictment. That's what happened in my last trial. They asked for that, and then they asked for them again, and then I broke down and gave them in writing. Of the things that I have in writing, that's probably the thing I'm most comfortable with, but y'all can tell me how you want to do it, whether we want to read it to them and give it to them in writing, or just read it to them and wait for them to ask the second time before I give it to them in writing. What I discovered, I think it was 3 trials ago.
Okay, so the jury asking for the legal, at least based on that question, I am of the opinion that, at this point, they've been deliberating for a significant amount of time. So it's obvious that they're not unanimous. It's obvious that there's some disagreement as to whether the state has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. But based on the question posed, I am of the opinion that at least some members of the jury are not convinced that the state has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And the element of the charges and would pretty much help them not necessarily make up their minds, but it would be a tool that could assist some jurors in making a decision and leaning one way or another.
Then they had someone trying to speed write while I was reading and writing it off the thing.
If you want to break out the charge and be like, here's malice murder charge, here's assault charge, that's fine. Just send it to them.
In writing.
Just give them the charge.
Yes, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Do y'all want me to bring them in to do that, or you just want me to print it out and give it to y'all and let y'all look at it and give it to them?
I think print it out. It's the same version you got.
All right.
Just give it to them.
We'll see. Actually, I gave you.
Melody is really, really nervous. She's really nervous. Rightfully so.
Oh, printed one. Do I have a printed one?
I've got your version.
I think one of y'all gave me a printed one.
I had your version before your final version. You did a change.
Let me see what we got.
Give them the charge.
But I don't think you changed that. You removed, I think simple assault's what you removed.
From there, and I can see it better.
And obviously, this question is slightly different from the jury asking for the calls between Melody and Rusty to be replayed. Um, so I guess, I mean, I wouldn't say this is a very difficult case. It's circumstantial. Most criminal cases are circumstantial. The real difference between circumstantial and direct evidence is the number of inferences that the trial of fact has to make. Direct evidence requires inferences as well because it's not always, even though it says direct evidence, it's not always indicative of guilt or innocence.
And I think, like I said, my last trial, they wanted to walk through each instruction with the indictment as they were going through. Let me try to. I'll get rid of the.
She is nervous. All right, so I don't think there's anything beyond. Okay, there is some conversation. All right, so I'll just wait. At least I'll talk through this. Right. I would like to believe that the DA's office probably acted. They were too hasty in bringing charges against Melody. Why say that? I mean, I do not doubt. I think with this evidence, right, all leads, all the evidence points to Melody Farris, right? But this is not an airtight case. Um, it's kind of different. The way that state law enforcement agencies interview and the way that charges are brought, it's not that they're always rushed, but state agencies are almost always quick to arrest, which is the opposite of the federal government. The very last thing that a federal government will do in criminal cases is arrest. That is the very last piece of the puzzle. In this case, I believe that the state's evidence probably would have been much stronger had they waited it out um, to see how the relationship between Rusty and Melody would unfold. I mean, I don't doubt that that relationship would have fallen out eventually because Rusty was seeing somebody else um, along with Melody. But still, a person that is not, in this case, I think that Rusty is definitely favorable to Melody. That would not be the case had they fallen out. But as the case has progressed, as he testified, it was obvious that, um, not to say that he adored her, but he was not quite prepared to throw her under the bus. So I think that the state in this case probably acted, not even probably, they were definitely hasty in bringing these charges against Melody. The case would have been much stronger had they at least waited. They just should have given it time. That's what I'd like to believe. So let me see. I don't think, or I guess the judge does get back on the bench, right? Then again, I don't quite want to fast forward, but let's see where this brings us. And then again, with Rusty and Melody, had they actually gone on to, um, get married and the sort, then we get into spousal privilege. And I don't want to because I always feel like I'm giving um, a lesson on the law of evidence. So let's see. I think the judge is about to. I think they're still muted.
Died, and I have to go. I mean, if I'm available, I want to go to the funeral home, or it's actually at the church. But
Okay, what is it talking about?
so I think that's at 1. So I may see if they want to work a little later, and then that way, if there's anything that I needed for it, I'll be back closer. But I can still be here in 30 minutes, regardless, because it's only across town.
All right.
Go.
Are we
or another-
supposed to be hearing
to the
this?
funeral home at 4 for another thing.
I think it's at 2.
Brody's thing is at 2. Okay. Well, then that may not matter.
It says 2 to 3 is a visitation.
Okay. And then the funeral's at 3. And then,
Celebration of life is at 3.
yeah. And then there's a thing after that. And then at 4 o'clock, I have a thing for.
Okay, that's what I figured. I figured that should have been off the record.
Attention retirees, if you're
Hold on. I actually thought that was George Santos. In any event, let us move on to a different portion of, let's see. Let's move on to a different portion of the court proceedings. Let's see, I believe this is it. Yeah.
From the thing at 2 o'clock I had to go to that I hope no one ever has to go through. And when I got back to my office, the bailiffs actually stuck their head in and said that the jurors planning on working till 5 o'clock.
All right.
I wanted to bring them out and get no information about where they are, but just to tell them that folks in the building start getting nervous at this time, and the captains come up to me about people staying late and securing the building and whether anyone wants to come back tomorrow and those sorts of things. So I'm going to talk to them about that and ask them to give us some idea. I want them to stay in here and work as long as they're going to work. And I'll stay with them as long as they need to. I have not talked to them about the alternates wanting to be called in if they have a verdict.
Okay.
And that
We're
the
all
moment they tell us
invested.
they have a verdict. If
We're all
they receive
invested.
one, that it will be a minimum of 30 minutes before we have it, because I know y'all have family members that are going to want to be here.
Right.
Other folks that have worked on the case. I expect the DA's office is going to reach out to some of the deputies. I believe the sheriff wants to be here. So it's going to be 30 to 45 minutes before we gather everybody here. So if they don't believe they're going to have a verdict this afternoon and they want to work till 5 o'clock, I may tell them that I'm going to cut everybody loose at 4 and they can stay in here and keep working, kind of like we've been doing, and then find out whether they want to come back tomorrow, which I'm going to discourage.
Right.
But if they want to, that's what I'll do. And then if not, have them report back on Monday. But I'm going to kind of give them that kind of guidance and see what they are doing. I think you have a conflict in the morning or something. Someone told me you had something doing. But
So Judge, you're not,
I have a conflict for today, but I have multiple conflicts for today, but we are here. I'm going
you're
to
not going to encourage them to keep working just tonight until they reach a decision.
correct. I'm going to let them make that decision. I will stay here with them as late as they want to.
And we will too, Judge.
But they have indicated that they want to break around 5. I want them to tell me that officially. And if they do, I'm going to tell them if they don't have anything by 4, I'm going to cut everyone else loose for the day and they are free to stay here and continue to work. Because if that makes, to the extent that makes sense. All right. Okay, go ahead and bring them in. And if they have any other requests, I would like to go ahead and handle those today if they do.
Can we expect a verdict tomorrow? It would depend on on whether the jury has any more questions or not. But I would like to believe that the jury is closer to a verdict than it was last week. That I'd like to believe. Ooh, she's nervous. Or anxious for one. As I said, that's rightfully so, considering that she's the defendant in this case.
It must be much warmer in the jury room than it is in the courtroom.
I cannot believe that she does not stand for the jury. I know her attorney explained why she doesn't do it, but that's
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted
I'd
to
like
chat
to
with
think
you a
it's
little bit about your
questionable
deliberations.
advice.
I am not in any way trying to rush you. I want
Right.
y'all to take as much time as y'all need on this case. What I want to talk to y'all about is bailiffs came back and told me that y'all wanted to work till about 5 o'clock, which is fine. But I want to talk to you before that to update you on a couple things I don't think we've talked about since I dismissed y'all to the jury room Wednesday. First, when I spoke with the alternate jurors and dismissed them, they are still on call. They all want to be here for the verdict. Understandably so. They've invested 4 weeks of their time,
Right.
so they want to be here when y'all reach a verdict. There are numerous other interested parties, witnesses, family members who also all want to be here when a verdict is reached. Some of them are on site and some of them are off site. It will take no less than 30 minutes up to 45 minutes for us to get everyone here for the verdict. So I want y'all to understand that there will be a delay once y'all reach a verdict and the reasons for it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this is about the time of day and week where folks in the building start getting nervous. Not because of y'all, but because they have to start getting in people to keep the building open. People think I have a lot of control. I have very little control. I have significant powers of persuasion, but I have to get permission from court staff to keep the building open. I have to let the people at the county commissioner's office to let them know that we're going to keep the building open. We have to talk to the person who regulates the thermostat to either keep it on or off or turn it down or whatever. So I want y'all to continue to work here this afternoon and this evening as long as you want to. I would like to, at some point, to be able to tell court staff whether we need to stay. They need to have additional personnel on call to come in and keep the building open and notify anybody else that may happen, and whether or not. So I want y'all to kind of assess for yourselves whether y'all are close or not, whether y'all want to continue to work throughout the afternoon, whether y'all want to break around 5 o'clock, whether y'all want to keep going till about 6 o'clock or later. Again, whenever, I'll be here till 2:30 if that's what you want. All right. The lawyers will also do the same. They are not in a rush to leave. They want y'all to take as much time as you want. So I'm just letting you know, you tell us what you're going to do, we will make appropriate action. If y'all do not believe that you're close to reaching a verdict today, but you want to stay and work till 5 or 6 or 7, that is perfectly fine. Kind of like last night, I would tell them, we'll come back on Monday if y'all reach a verdict tonight or tomorrow. So that would be the other thing, is I have kept the building open on Saturday. I've had many juries come back on Saturday morning and deliberate. I'm not going to encourage that, but I will go along with that if that's in fact what you want to do. When we've had juries come back on Saturday, a lot of times they want to come back at 10 and work from 10 to 2 and then take the rest of the afternoon off. Again, that is up to you. But what I would like for y'all to do is kind of go back, talk among yourselves, and give me some report to the best that you can, what y'all would like to do for the rest of today, whether y'all anticipate maybe getting a verdict tonight, whether you do not anticipate getting a verdict tonight, whether you want to come back tomorrow if you're going to continue to work, or whether you want to come back on Monday. Is that somewhat clear? All right. If y'all could do that, and y'all can just give me a report in writing to the bailiff, and then I'll inform the lawyers. If y'all want to continue to deliberate, do not believe that y'all would get a verdict today, I would probably tell the lawyers and the family that they could be excused around 4 o'clock. If there's any questions or evidence that y'all want to review today, let us know in the next 30 minutes, and then we will do that, and then we will excuse whoever for the day. Okay? So if y'all would do that and then give me a report back, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, does the judge continue to address the court or no? I have remarks. One moment. I don't want to cut him off.
All right, any issues with any of that? All right, we'll hang loose until we get some report from them, and then I'll update y'all, and I'll give y'all some suggested course of action.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want us to hang loose here and you'll just come back and judge? Or you want to raise it in Texas?
I'll bring y'all back in.
Okay, then I'll just
Or y'all, I mean, I know the folks in the back are going to want to know
No, she's sitting.
too,
I mean,
because they have the
attorneys are distant.
they have the
from each
watch
other as
party
well.
going on online. Watch party.
There's people?
Somebody's hosting a verdict watch. Something. I'm quite astounded.
The judge cannot believe that some of us sit around. I mean, I usually listen to these or watch these as I'm working, but he cannot fathom that there are people around the world or around the country that sit down and watch verdicts, or at least this specific one. All right. So I have a few remarks to make. I would like to believe that Alec Murdaugh's trial, or at least the jurors would have had a difficult time deliberating had he not taken the stand. At least the one thing about Melody is that she seems to be the type that listens to advice, or at least in this instance, it appears that she listened to her attorney's advice not to take the stand. I know some folks would prefer to, at least lay folks would prefer to hear from a criminal defendant, but that is not the way criminal procedure works. A person that is in the position of Melody Farris is under no duty to incriminate themselves. It's a high burden. It's a burden that the prosecutor has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. A defendant, whether they have in fact engaged in the conduct that they are accused of or not, they are under no obligation to do the, or at least to carry out the prosecution's duties or work for them. But I'd like to believe that had Alec Murdaugh not taken the stand in his case, it either would have been, I do not foresee an acquittal in that case, but a hung jury would have been the more probable outcome. Because how often have you heard the statement, things like this don't happen around here, in the context of a heinous crime being committed in an affluent community or part of town? That's because folks with money would like the rest of us to believe that certain crimes do not happen in their communities, or that affluent folks do not commit heinous crimes. So in this instance, it is hard to believe that somebody such as, when I say it's hard to believe, it's hard for a lot of people to believe that somebody like Melody Farris would take her husband out. I mean, as as chaotic as their personal lives are, that might be hard for some people to believe, right? And so in my books, it is a good thing she didn't take the stand, because certain things are difficult to explain. In this case, she would have a hard time explaining the phone calls or the conversations that she had with Rusty on those recorded calls. All right, so let's move on to the third portion of this. I'd like to believe it's a third part of this video. There we go. All right, let's see what the judge has to say.
All right. It's my understanding y'all want to go ahead and break for the day and resume deliberations on Monday at 9 o'clock. Is that correct? And that's perfectly fine. I'm sure y'all are tired. I know I am. I will tell y'all, just similarly as I was telling you before I dismissed y'all about gathering folks up, that's going to be an issue. I have an additional issue next week in that I have court scheduled every day for an entire day for the entire week. That's not your problem and not your concern, and it's not the first time I'll be juggling a jury and other matters. It will just take time for me to, because I don't think we have a free courtroom for me to use for my other calendar. So it'll be me sending whoever's in the courtroom out and then bringing whoever needs to be here for whatever we're taking up with y'all in. But that should not, don't let that impact anything y'all are doing other than what I've told you about. If you have multiple questions, multiple things you want to review, do that. It'll take somewhere around 30 minutes for us to get everybody back in here to do those things. So continue to work while you're doing that, or it's a good time for y'all to take a break, go get coffee, stretch your legs, whatever. It is, again, critical And this is probably the most dangerous moment, especially in a case of this nature in terms of somebody communicating
Dude, that
and
woman is
reaching out to
nervous.
you. We have obscured your information so nobody knows outside who you are. My bigger concern are the people who know you,
Right.
who are part of your inner circle that knows that y'all are in this case. Do not let them talk to you about the case at all. To the extent you can stay home and sleep and watch college football tomorrow. Don't have my cup. But to the extent y'all can do that and stay away and out of public eye, that would be fantastic. If something happens, remove yourself from the situation immediately. Let the bailiffs know first thing, and we will talk to you and address it first thing. As long as you immediately remove yourself from the situation and no one says anything of significance to you, that's fine. And I know that you're not going to intentionally do that.
Right.
But again, be especially careful if you use social media. Be very careful
Right.
if you're on it
There's
over the weekend.
cases everywhere.
If you like to review news, this has been picked up by local news, been picked up by Atlanta station news, and it's been picked up by various national news media organizations, including the folks that are in the room in the back. So just be especially careful. Don't talk to anyone about the case. Look up anything about the case. Look up anything about the law. I'm not going to say, like I said, if you're watching Law and Order or something like that, that's fine. Just remember that what they're talking about may or may not have anything to do with the law in Georgia or how things work here. Y'all are free to go back and deliberate as long as you want to for the rest of the day, or be dismissed for the end of the day. I'm not going to give you any additional instructions or make you come back in here. Any questions, comments, concerns about anything from y'all? All right. Y'all can be excused. Have a good weekend. Go Dogs.
All right. So with this case, at this juncture, I am leaning hung jury, but I still think that the Melody's statement that he's in the burn pile, that is damning evidence. I don't know how to overcome this. I think Melody for sure took her husband out. I think all the evidence points to Melody Farris, but from the perspective of a lay juror that has to make more inferences than they are convinced of, it might be difficult, as I've said previously in this voice note, it might be difficult to come to the reconciliation that somebody such as Melody Farris would commit such a heinous crime. But I think the evidence points to, not that I think, the evidence points to Melody Farris. Whether the prosecution has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt is another question. Whether the jury can make the inferences that would lead them to a guilty conviction, there is another, that's a different aspect. So ultimately, it would probably become much clearer tomorrow, depending on how much longer the jury deliberates and depending on whether they have any more questions to pose to the court and what questions they have for the court. So that is pretty much the end of this live stream. I will be tuning in. I won't be tuning in live because I do have a job as an attorney and I have to work. But I will certainly tune in tomorrow, have a live stream after the court has at least ended for the day. Thank you for watching.